fucking fast time. If this is what this has come to, that's what it needs to be. It needs to happen. I've been going too far in some stuff, and I need to be canceled at least at some point.
No, I don't think you should be canceled at all. I think
Before we start, you ahead.
we're starting now. We're gonna start now.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm posting up the whole Twitch thing and all that fun stuff. So anybody on Twitter can that wants to be a part of this conversation can come be a part of the conversation. But I think we're live now. Yeah.
I'll make a tweet.
Yeah. Oh, this is lovely.
We on your stuff in the background. It's so fun.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's crazy, man. So two of my shelves are specifically for D&D, specifically to run D6.
Mm-hmm.
So I have like one shelf that is all miniatures and some stuff that just gets used for battle maps and stuff, and then the other shelf is like books, dungeon tiles, templates for spells and stuff like that. And then the rest is just like anime, books, just trash, all trash.
It's all trash.
Yeah, it's all anime trash. I'm as nerdy as they come.
I've seen like far worse. I have a friend, actually two friends. They go by Dungeon Bros on YouTube.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they have like, I went to their house to record a podcast, and literally because it's two nerds living together, their entire like first floor is all just like, it's like your bookcase or your shelves, but like the entire first floor of their house. I walked.
Oh my!
What is happening here?
That sounds amazing, though.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So first off, to people who are going to be slowly joining in the stream, obviously, with quick introductions, I am Aaron or Yaro Shien, and with me is the Ha to my Yi, actually, Feltheleb. Feltheleb. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say the two Southern boys on Joe Cat's D&D campaigns. I'm like you 2.0 in the new
campaigns. like I, as soon as I found out the way Buck was gonna be talking, like it stirred in me for a while. I'm all like, there's got to be like an actual place where this accent is coming from.
What was funny is I think you actually DM'd me like pretty much like 3 or 4 days before Joe Cat asked if I would be a part of that campaign. And when I was creating, because I had watched the whole of Belkinus Necro Hunt, and when I created the character, I was like, damn, I really want to make this Southern. Can I? And I asked Joe Cat, I was like, is it okay if there's like another Southern character? Like, we're not like tied to any like specific regionality that like Yaro's character and mine are both from, like the like south of like, the world that he's created.
It's like, it's specifically like a Chesterian like accent that just like never caught on, and it just goes from like person to person, and like it's so like non-unified, it's so ambiguous as to where this accent came from. And at some point it just reached to somebody else, and then somebody else, and then somebody else. I really hope that becomes a continued theme, because I know for what was that very short campaign, the Golden K, that was live streamed, I don't think anybody had as Southern speaking tone.
Sad. You always need one. You gotta have one good Southern person there. But I'm Feltheleb. I make content. I make voice acting content in the past, more so in the past, more recently in the past couple of years, been making Dungeons and Dragons content for 5th edition on my YouTube channel and doing Let's Plays, or I guess not Let's Plays, but like live tabletop role-playing games in various places for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
One of those being the um, the Heart of Olynthe campaign with Jokat, which is the one that we're
Yeah.
referring.
Oh god. I need to actually catch up. I'm actually an episode behind.
That's okay. I think there's only 2 episodes that are out
Yeah.
on YouTube right now.
Yeah. I've watched episode 1 and I'm like, I gotta catch up on everything else so far. But like when I say like I'm an episode behind, it's just like because I've only watched episode 1. I know a lot of people do not catch up on D6, to which hi, I'm Aaron. As you all know, I am Yaro Shien. I usually stream everything that is Final Fantasy 14, but for today we're going to be talking about D&D because I run the D&D live show D6 and all of its subsequent titles between you know, Dawnright to Black Archives. And oh god. So this past week has been a whirlwind, wouldn't you agree?
That is, realistically, I think in terms of the tabletop, not just Dungeons and Dragons, but like as far as tabletop goes, to say that it's been a whirlwind of a week, I think is like the understatement of the year. Why did this year have to start so like insanely?
Like it's not just like Wizards either. It's also like YouTube as well. Like everyone's trying to change up their policies where it's just like it's terrible for everyone.
It just feels, oh yeah, it's been like I've been trying so hard not to stay like off Twitter and to try and not like view everything, but it all is like really, I guess, like important, and so it's just been very stressful, as I'm sure your viewers and you know pretty much everyone who might be coming to the stream is at least somewhat aware. I can't
Yeah.
imagine you've gotten to today, January 14th, 2023, and you're in the tabletop role-playing game set like sphere and you have not caught on to anything. I just don't think that's possible.
Yeah. If it came to the idea, so to start off with what I wanted to talk to you about, because your initial reaction to a lot of this was skepticism, which I thought was extremely fair, like in all reality, because you can't just hear something and then take it for like, and then take it as like this is gospel. And that was like the original reaction, I believe for you, was where it's just like you heard about this leak, it's not confirmed. Let's wait until we hear about what Wizards or Hasbro says, and then move from there. And then as time goes on, as the dust was kicking up, they became more and more reclusive and silent, which to people that goes off as like, oh, this is the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I made a video on, and I'm not normally like a news type YouTube channel. I generally make stuff where I analyze, I think overanalyze sort of the rules and the settings that are written in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. But so I made a video that I posted, I think January the 2nd, and I titled it "Why I'm Not Yet Worried About OGL 1.1." And when I made the video, it was around 2 months since this whole thing kind of kicked off. In November of 2022 is when Indestructo Boy leaked that there was going to be some like really big changes relating to 1D&D and the open gaming license. The initial information that he had was that Wizards was completely getting rid of third-party content. Like there wasn't going to be an OGL in any form for the thing. And then around that time is when certain creators, and by that I mean like certain publishers, started signing non-disclosure agreements relating to discussions around the OGL and that process, which further kind of increased speculation. Then, of course, I think it was in this all kind of takes place, and then in December, that's when Wizards first posts their sort of, we're gonna have OGL 1.1. Don't worry, guys, this is very limited stuff we're changing. And I think at the time when I made the video, which was 3 days before the Linda Codega Gizmodo leak, was realistically, I felt so many people were talking in like definitive statements about what would and would not happen. And I tried really hard to look for it, and there just really wasn't that information. So I tried to say, guys, let's take a second to analyze things. Just because something has been leaked doesn't mean that it's a fact, and especially just because something is leaked doesn't mean that it's going to end up that way in the future. And I think that's, as we've seen, I think that is still borne out, seeing as the fact that OGL 1.1, although it's leaked, is now not going to happen anymore, presumably. I mean, there's no official language, but Wizards has come out now and said, which is what we're talking about later, that Wizards is no longer going forward with 1.1. They thought to themselves, how do I stop people from searching that thing that we almost tried to get away with? If they're not searching OGL 1.1, they'll be searching OGL 2.0, and then we got them. And I don't think that's my thought anyway. But yeah, I made so then I make the video. I take my foot and I place it entirely in my mouth, and I say, let's calm down and wait until we have more information. And one of the things I said was, it's a lot of the people who are leaking information were third-party publisher, or at least they were people, as I see it, when I look at this information, is who stands to have a stake, and I think all of us have bias in some way, but there's a certain level of bias that I think I have to keep in mind when the information is being leaked to someone who's extremely directly affected, like a third-party publisher. And so what I said was, I would really, if these leaks are going to go anywhere, I would hope that they would go to like a journalist, someone who doesn't have a stake in this, because that to me bolsters the credibility. And of course, OGL 1.1 further bolstered when we actually had the actual language, which I think was leaked to the people that make Battle Zoo, Roll for Combat, when the like actual direct language was leaked to them, and then they released it along with Linda Codega and their release of 1.1. But and it's crazy to think that only happened. Linda Codega's article on Gizmodo only leaked on like the 5th, like less than 10 days ago, and so much has come forward since then.
Yeah. If it was anything that had come to at least my mind, the way that my initial reaction was, there is a certain level of this that will not fundamentally affect me or a handful of people. And then it dawned on me, this can affect me. This can affect a great deal of people. Because when I'm reading about the 1.1 or what will be 2.0, the fucking language of this, there is, because if they are willing to change the OGL, they'd be willing to change fan content eventually, the policy of fan content, and then we're gonna have this whole game workshop issue with that same mindset. We're not gonna have things like the Legends of Vox Machina. We're not gonna have things like D6 Black Archives. We're not gonna have Tales of sorry, I don't want to mispronounce it because I say it weird. Ethery. Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what it is. Yeah.
Joe, message me. I need an answer. But this is a domino effect in the grand scheme of things. And also, over the course of this past year, I've been trying to work on creating my own guide and homebrew for what is my world for D6, which is Erzheimel. And, I was going to come out with, at least a volume 1 to kind of get me started to see what I could do to start with. But as time goes on and you start writing more and more and more and more and more, and you start seeing why people run these Kickstarters, why people go to like Hit Point Press and Griffin's Saddlebag, and all these amazing publishers. And then when it hits back to come to me, like if there was enough people that wanted to buy either a PDF version or a physical version of this, then I would see the repercussions of this OGL being changed. And so it's odd. It's odd because I know if they were willing to change this OGL, they will change fan content. And then I won't have this passion project of mine, which I have thrown thousands of dollars into. Like I've talked about this on another stream. I recently just got a DM screen that was a Christmas gift from my sister, and I've spent thousands of dollars on miniatures, 3D printing, painting, source books, dungeon tiles. This game means a lot to me. And the language that I am receiving is that I am not appreciated as a dungeon master or a player. And so that's what this whole thing with OGL, it's corporate mentality telling you aren't doing enough for us. And this also comes back to that whole thing where it's just like, you guys, like D&D is heavily undermonetized. Like there's not enough money flowing towards us that we want, even though we sign our own multi-million-dollar checks for being CEOs and COOs and all that stuff. And then like the people downstairs who are doing the actual work are getting paid like, $100,000, a couple $10,000 grands and all that stuff. And like, we're all sitting here wondering, who's really, putting in the effort.
I think in that quote that you're talking about, the D&D is under monetized.
Yeah.
Something that in my video, I worked on that video with Tulok the Barbarian, who also makes D&D content.
I love that guy.
Yeah,
I watch every one of his videos, honestly.
of the stuff that has come forward, like that has happened because of this. One thing that I can definitely say is like I've sort of started a friendship with Tulok, and to be able to work with him and to talk to him about this stuff has been really like at the very least making like a friend out of all of this has been something great. So we went through and he made the decision to watch that quote is specifically from an investor meeting that took place I want to say back in early December of 2022. And what I think, and it became a big thing in the D&D sphere for a while, talking about that specific quote. But the thing that I think is really the newsworthy portion of that is it's that investor meeting is not about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
It's not about it's about Magic the Gathering, and just they bring on the president, I can't remember her name, but the president of Wizard of the Coast to come in, and she starts it off her little section about Dungeons and Dragons by saying like, yeah, I think the brand's really under monetized, and then she kind of just goes into talking about other stuff like the D&D movie and that sort of thing. But what occurs to me now, this having all gone through, I think the thing that I get out of it is less that they were actively focused on the fact that the brand was under monetized, and more it just and also someone saying that they're having a hard time hearing me. Can raise my gain a little bit. I don't know if that helps.
Here, I could turn you up to like 200%.
If this is any better, people in chat can let me know. But what occurs to me is that it really feels like not just that they feel like it's not just that they feel that the brand is under monetized. It's that they feel that the brand is under monetized, and it feels as though they just are not giving it the same consideration that they should be, like the level of consideration. Like it's one thing to say like this is under monetized, let's focus on pumping more money out of it. It's more like this is under monetized and it's kind of an afterthought, so if we change it, it's not that big of a deal. And I think if anything, what has become apparent to me by the response or lack of response that has gone on since the leak of 1.1 feels to me like a sort of callousness or underappreciation, kind of like what you were talking about, than anything. I try
Yeah.
really hard not to subscribe or to other people's, or try not to ascribe. I try not to paint other people with a brush of like active malice unless I see, evidence of that they're being like willfully malicious. But
Yeah.
certainly, if there's not a willful maliciousness, which I think you could probably read into the situation, there's certainly an apathy when it comes to handling the situation. And I think Wizards, more than anything, has demonstrated that they are completely caught off guard and surprised by the fact that so many people care about this situation to the degree to which they care about this, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Which brings up an important point about Wizards' perception of the community and us and people like us, because this brings up what was that tweet by D&D Shorts, and he made a video. I think I saw it yesterday, talking a lot more deeply into it, because that went into the announcement with D&D Beyond. But to start with, so this was an insider from Wizards, as we were talking about this mentality that they have. And I was discussing this the other day on stream, the way that they had this behavior, that the backlash that they are getting is the frustrating part, because it is keeping them from getting our money. And the way that this is described, and as it would be healthy to have skepticism to sit there and say that, how do we know that this guy is actually from Wizards of the Coast? There is a portion of this that comes off as truthful because of the delayed silence for so long, and that they now have to delay this as per the backlash. And now and with the subscriptions being taken away, that further proves that they are having to put everything on pause because of this. So it's just one block and one domino after another in this. And then for the way that it describes, especially in the major paragraph below the small listings, I've decided to reach out because of my time at WotC. I have never once heard management refer to customers in a positive manner. Their communication gives me the impression that they see customers as obstacles between them and their money. The D&D Beyond team was first told to prepare the support for the new OGL, yada, yada, yada. That tells me, and from the investor meeting to now, and I think you are right that is offhanded. And to a lot of people, there is that semblance of danger, because we're so used to gaming companies constantly trying to nickel and dime every single person that they possibly can. Loot boxes, battle passes, this whole terrible industry, the patch it later mentality. You can't really do that with tabletop. We before, I think, what was it? Mordenkainen's Multiverse of Monsters, we had Volo's Guide and the Tome of Foes. Those are now considered legacy. This patch it later mentality means that you had to spend close to about $120 to $150 if you decided to buy all three of those books over the course of 5-6 years. You have to constantly buy to stay updated. But for a video game where if you bought it for $60 and it came broken, Cyberpunk 2077, probably the best example I can say this, you bought that game full price and it came broken, and then over the course of these past couple of years, they've been patching and patching and fixing and fixing and fixing. You only had to buy that game once. So now this is the mentality of, well, they are trying to get in a situation where they want to be in this situation where, especially with the OGL situation that I'm trying to describe and get to the point here, what they want is to have this OGL where they can find other people doing the fixes for them, spend less money, be less creative, and take from other people, tell them that they can't sell that thing anymore, and then sell it themselves wholesale. Just put it in another book, just completely grab something, put it in another book, and then sell it back to people for, another $30 to $50. That's the mentality. And that's why it is us versus them getting our money.
Right. I think, and I'll say two things. One, to push on, because you had mentioned a skepticism, and you mentioned that specifically for me, and one of the things, and in the video that I made. What I'll say is, my skepticism and being critical around some of the leaks that come out. I try not to concern myself with whether or not something is true. Like, I'll never be able to prove that that a Wizards employee sent this thing, through anonymous means to D&D Shorts. What I can say is I love D&D Shorts. I like their content. I trust them, not just as a creator, but as someone who I've seen. I have other creators who've worked with them in the past that I trust. What I try to remain critical, I think maybe not skeptical, but maybe critical is the better word of, is that, there's always stuff that's changing within these companies. And I think what you've hit upon, the second thing I'll say is what you've hit upon, I think is absolutely correct. Wouldn't necessarily agree that I think Wizards is trying to create this OGL for the purposes of grabbing the content that third-party creators made and bringing into their own fold. As I see the situation, and the reason for the OGL is, and I think I might have said this elsewhere on a different stream, but what this whole situation I think has shown me is, at least as I see the situation, 5th edition is really popular. In the announcement for 1D&D, what they say is, we don't really even think of it as an edition. We think of it as D&D. Which is fair. I mean, it's the most popular tabletop role-playing game, and it's the most popular that Dungeons and Dragons has ever done. It's introduced swaths of new people to the game. It's changed so much about the landscape of tabletop role-playing games, and I don't think that can be denied. So they're sitting there and they're looking at it and they're like, damn, we did a really good job about this. But we got to make more money on it because we're a company and we got to make money. But we don't want to do another edition. So what do you get out of that? You get the let's go editionless, which is one of the main promises that they promise with 1D&D. They want to do this. I think in a way they believe that we will be complacent when it comes to this patch it later mentality. I think we've seen that with the Hadozi scandal that happened just earlier this year, where they were like, dang, we really should have got some cultural sensitivity people to look it out. But you guys, we put out a statement, you're wrong, we messed up, we shouldn't have done it, we'll fix it, it's different printed in the books, we're doing, and while I appreciate Wizards trying to, I should say, I always think that there is going to be value in someone trying to remedy something that they did wrong. I never want to say that it's not worth anything, even though it might be too late to fix something. And you could have already done the damage and you could have already hurt someone or broke someone's trust. I do believe there's at least some value in trying to make it better. But when that kind of scandal happened and their solution was, this sort of patch it later mentality and not taking tact at the outset to try and address it. What it tells me in terms of their approach to 1D&D is going to be we're trying to make a sort of perhaps semi-modular system that we never will have to update. We'll create some sort of online widget, some sort of portal, and probably some type of virtual tabletop, and we'll treat it like a video game. The issue is you have this old OGL, which is super open, and doesn't, to be fair, doesn't account for the things that existed 20 years ago when they wrote it. And
Yeah.
so they're thinking, how can we got to write something that will try to cover everything and will be as most favorable to us, because we can just kind of, we can update it 30 days later and everything. And when you do that, and with the terms that you need to get the things that they want are necessarily going to be antithetical to the creation of third-party content.
Yeah.
And I think and it speaks to my thought is in their, without a clear focus on what's really important and what really can grow growth for their brand, that is third party content, longevity of play, introducing new generations through the old generations. Because they're not focused on that and they're focused on money, they ended up with this like really draconian language, which is necessarily going to scare away people at the minimum, and at the maximum it's going to give them the ability to do exactly what you're afraid of, where they can just take this thing that you've been working on for so long, and they can say, we actually had Yaro's idea for a little while. Like, I know that he said that he thought of it like 3 years ago, but it's time, it's the new 1D&D, I don't know, Golden Stone update, and so the Golden Stone update is going to include all of, and they shouldn't, obviously they shouldn't have the ability to do that. Like, no one would sign something or agree to something where they have the ability to do that.
Oh yeah. And this also brings up, the way that their language more recently, especially yesterday, and how they responded to like it what obviously felt like a bunch of responses that also kind of felt like just lies. Yeah. Lies, because yes, we do have this thing that D&D Shorts had posted, and the way that the mentality of WotC's leadership and Hasbro's leadership have perceived at us, and then pretty much what felt like a nothing burger, if you could call it that. So I think D&D Shorts had talked about this portion more than enough yesterday. How, kind of pointing out a lot of the lies. And when it came to like looking at, this whole thing, it's just so like, some of this language obviously is to try and make some people feel better by getting them to stop unsubscribing. Mm-hmm. And you are right, it's very antithetical to creativeness and third party and the way that this is all driven and designed. But when looking at the first sentences of like talking about Web3, blockchain, NFTs, and all that stuff, it's kind of horribly ironic, considering Hasbro is currently trying to sell Power Ranger NFTs and all that stuff.
It's a fun little sleight of hand to be like, listen guys, we can't have, we don't want people thinking that the OGL was meant to allow people to create NFTs for Dungeons and Dragons. What they really want to say is, you guys don't get to create the Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
NFTs. Like, we want the ability to do that. You shouldn't be like, that's what they really mean when they say they're against. What they're against.
And it also falls under the same pretense of the notion that if only they are allowed to do it, what would happen to fan content in the future? Because if fan content becomes this thing where they're all like, we're gonna change up the policy for fan content now. Nobody can stream this stuff anymore. Nobody can create fan art for this stuff anymore. Nobody can do this. Nobody can do that. And all that does is that this whole setup for the OGL with homebrew, as soon as you can copy and paste the word OGL with fan content, suddenly we start having more and more problems. you know, and it's like you said, it's very antithetical to creativeness. And like they want to clamp down on every which direction, and this is corporate anything, you know. They want to remove competition, you know. That's their whole, that's the gig, that's the whole song and dance. But in this scenario, if you will, where a lot of what the language is for their post, it's like we want to be stewards of the game, you know, the OGL is supposed to be the benefit of the fans. We know that's a lie now, because the language we've seen what this 1.1 would have been. We've heard what the mentality is with WotC's leadership is. We know that that is not the case. We know that they are content with lying to our faces and thinking that this will all just be over as soon as possible. And once again, this whole letter is just a nothing burger. And
I think. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Two more points I wanted to hit on this article. The two big things that kind of bother me personally. The first one is like the first big thing the reason why I have little to no faith with Wizards right now is their language of like, you're going to hear people say that they won and we lost because making your voices heard forced us to change our plans. That's like the Grandmaster from Thor Ragnarok. You know, is so like you can't have a revolution without somebody to overthrow. So congratulations, a pat on the back, and it's a tie. That's the way it feels. That's the way they're trying to position this. It's like listen, everyone's sitting here saying what they're saying, and obviously we look like assholes, but in all reality, we were just trying to do our best. You guys have obviously had your voices heard, but yeah, it's a tie.
Do you want to know a very hot take about this language specifically?
What?
And why I think they put it in there? And you're coming from the guy who I've already said at the beginning, I want to be skeptical, I want to be critical about it. I think that this language that they put in there, I think they put it in there because I think they want people to focus on it, and not for the reason. I sort of feel like this is like a dunk magnet, like come on and dunk on us for this like weird language. The important thing is not, from this language that I get, is not that they want people to think that, oh, like we came to some sort of tie. I think they put this language in there because they want us to think that this is over. Because the language of one necessarily means that like whatever, battle the two sides had was finished. I think they would rather people argue about whether or like which side came out on top. They would rather us have that argument than have the argument of, or than to recognize that there is no win or lose yet. You haven't put out any official language. And so like people I think are getting too focused on like it's really it is a dunk, man. I mean, just obviously you should dunk on them for including that because it's a horrible piece of writing. But I think what it's important for people to understand is that don't take Wizards' word for the fact that like for the finality of that language and that this like you got us, we changed it to the way that you wanted it. Like there's no more reason to keep unsubscribing or to keep talking about this issue, because that's what this is designed to do, to placate for as long as possible so that they can change things and reword things in a way that's more favorable for them. To speak to something that you were saying, which is, the subscribing and the unsubscribing from subscriptions for D&D Beyond, I think they're really out of luck when it comes to like if they think that people are going to start signing up like after they post this or after they post their official language. One thing I don't think they're aware of is how much damage is being done or has already been done. I think it is extremely hard to get people to do a thing. It's much more hard to get them to do a thing than to do nothing.
Yeah.
I have like a Facebook account that I haven't used in maybe like 8 years, but I haven't deleted it because that's a thing that I have to do. And if I
Yeah.
had deleted it, a thing that I would have to do if I wanted to get back into it was I would have to I'd have to reactivate the account, which involves an email and everything. The fact
An email,
that so
a
many,
printout of your ID, the whole song and
e-
dance.
even if getting back into something involves like getting an email and verifying an account, it's still a thing you have to do. And what one thing they should realize is there is an extremely large portion of the people that unsubscribed or deleted their D&D Beyond accounts that are never coming back. Not simply because whatever answer they have may or may not be good enough. That aside, it's just not going to happen again. They like it's a sense of finality that some people have made for themselves or that have done for themselves, and it's like, there's I don't see people coming back after that. Like you're already losing so bad right now in that regard, and it's gonna take a lot to get people to come back, and I don't see a lot here.
Yeah.
I see them fighting back again. Oh, sorry, you can go.
Yeah, no, you were saying, and this is what I was talking about earlier, that this is a nothing burger. This is purely carbs. This will give you nothing. And
It's
that's
definitely not all sugar. I know that.
Yeah, no, there's not an ounce of sugar. It's trying to act like sugary language, but it's kind of like that, what's it? It's the sugar, or it's a sweetener, but not a sugar. It's like it's a sweetener for your
Splenda.
coffee. Yeah, Splenda, basically.
This stream not brought to you by Splenda. Well, I think I want, and I did say early in the stream, and I'll maintain this. Like I really do think, I mean, it's going to remain what's to be seen. Nothing in this is actually official, just like nothing, it's all subject to change. They put out a thing like this back in December about 1.1, and that's pretty much all over. Like for example, they say they're not doing royalties anymore. That was, I don't want to say that there's nothing that they can do. Nothing has been done yet. I think there are steps that, at least in this, what it indicates to me, not just through the language, but by the fact that they didn't go forward with 1.1 when it was supposed to release on the 4th, or that they didn't go forward with 2.0, which was supposed to release, I think, 2 days ago. And the reason that them putting this up tells me that at the very least, it seems as though things can change. Now, I'm not saying that they're listening in the way that they should be. I'm not saying that they have demonstrated that they're going to change anything. But when Pandora's box opened, the thing that was good that came out of it is like a little bit of hope. And I'm holding on to the little bit of hope that this post has, in the sense that they're at the very least saying, okay, we see some of the things that you're saying. Obviously, they don't touch on like OGL 1.0, and they still sort of imply that they're going to try and unauthorize it. And they don't, they don't focus as much on, whatever OGL, if there's going to be, if it's something that they're going to be able to change at a whim or with some type of notice or anything like that. Yeah. But I do think there are some things that at the very least indicate towards the possibility of a better future for whatever this new gaming license could be.
Yeah.
But I'll caveat that by saying that just little bit of hope that's coming through, because I personally want to have it. I want to have that hope. But I'm just not seeing, they're just not doing enough here. And the like, they won, we rolled in that one. It's like, we're all adults.
Yeah,
this is really serious. Like, this is
really
this
serious. Is not. Yeah, we're not trying to be funny about this. Like, listen, this is not coming to the table as a D&D like campaign game. This is serious. This is business. Yeah. Like, I've talked about this before the other day on Thursday, and like in reference to video game companies and how they can fix a lot of the problems, is that they need to shut the fuck up, put their heads down, listen to what is being told to them, and fix it. Not try and be quirky about it, not try and, be, with the cool kids, because, there is an obvious like difference between I think with the way that the mentality of companies have gotten over the years, especially with their with the way that they kind of promote a lot of their stuff, is that they think that being quirky online is the equivalent of a YouTuber being quirky online. And they're trying to, equate to that. That is not what's happening yet. Yeah.
Like they're gonna like, what are they gonna put in, like a meme or something?
Yeah.
Like into the, like a reaction image. I agree with you. I think it's
if it's coming from me. Yeah, like if I'm coming out and I'm making fun of anime titty, which I always do, that's kind of like my big thing on YouTube. That's part of who I am. I'm the individual. Like you come to subscribe to me because I am a person that is, quirky to you, that you enjoy watching and laughing. But as a company, you got to understand that this is a business. People are going to spend thousands of dollars on your fucking products, and that you do not have the space to be behaving that way when something goes wrong. Because as an individual, we can apologize because we have to bear the whole weight of our responsibility of our mistakes. As a company, there's a lot of fucking people that you can all point blame at, but at the end of the day, it's somebody at leadership doing something fucked up, and everyone's gonna blame the whole company, and and that becomes a whole mess.
There was I think we've come so far from, like, what was it, like eight maybe years ago, when Wendy's like went on Twitter and like personified their brand, and like Wendy's was like making memes and like responding really like making jokes to people and being quirky and snappy at people and making like the Twitter beef, like that. That brand personification ruined an entire generation of advertisers and public relations people's perception on what is going to be appropriate. Listen, I'm a millennial. And so
same.
like we I think it was us that like fell into, because I'll admit I was having a good time when the Wendy's account would like tweet at KFC and be like, your chicken's not very good, like,
it's funny,
but definitely Gen Z and Gen X, Gen Z definitely does not think that's funny, and it's to the point for me where it's become so tired and so overdone. The realm of parasocial relationships between people online and these creators and these brands has become so like spread out, like so thin, that it's so transparent, and it comes off in such a bad way, especially when, like, here, this is like if they had some of the language here is if like they had like a little like beholder come out, and it had like I don't know, like Matthew Mercer's voice, and it's like, sorry guys, we rolled on that one about like, we're gonna make sure, that's not how Matthew Mercer sounds. But like it displays that thing that I was talking about earlier, where there's got to be more thought put into this. This is a game that has existed, for like what, like 50 years now, and has survived so much to get to such a high point, and it's such a good IP, monetary wise, for Hasbro for not like, I'm not glad that they picked it up, but like for saying like, if I'm the owner of Hasbro, like I should be ecstatic to pick up this like really solid brand and to be able to do such great things with it. I mean, they're making movies, they're making TV shows. Stranger Things has propelled them to a new to new heights. You've got shows like Critical Role, and you've got, you know, Dimension 20, and beyond just the two, like some of these like really big ones. You've got a whole community of people in the streaming age, ourselves included, that are trying to, like, that are not even trying, just promoting your game for free. You have so much. The fact that they have so much going well for them, and they're being so nonchalant and dismissive about the cares and concerns, and just not taking it, in my opinion, as seriously as they need to. It's just
It-
like, what are you guys doing? Like, what, like,
which
how did it take you so long to respond to this in the way, in like, why didn't we get something better?
and that in and of itself was bothering, because there was this prolonged knuckle dragging of this conversation. And this also leads back to, like, you know, this last paragraph here, where it talks about you know, any change this major could only have been done well if we were willing to take that feedback, no matter how it was provided. So we are. This one statement right here is a fucking lie. And you want to know how I know it is a lie? Because there is a D&D Beyond Discord channel. You can join the server. You can discuss among each other and, like, hey, homebrew ideas, game ideas, all this fun stuff. But over the course of the past 24 to 48 hours, anybody willing to sit there and say that this whole article is either you know, an empty you know, word salad, or just filled with lies, they are getting blocked and kicked out of the Discord server, which is ran by people over at D&D Beyond and D&D and Hasbro. Those are the mods. These are people that are supposed to be listening to the community, and you are willing to take that feedback, that criticism, and you're willing to take it all. You're saying that you're willing to accept anything that is coming your way, and when you're being told you're lying to us, and then say no, and then block people. That's how I know that this is a nothing burger. That's how I know this is all a lie. You're not willing to take any feedback or criticism, and now you're just trying to, like, once again, placate to this audience that obviously know that we are not fucking idiots. We're nerds. We're smart. You know, you know, this whole game was designed by very smart people to be played by smart people, to be enjoyed by smart people. And every person who does play this game is beautiful and smart and talented and creative. But as soon as you sit there and act like a corporate entity who is trying to treat all these amazing, beautiful, smart people like idiots and fools, that's when we sit there and say, okay, you're the bullies. You're these kind of people that have obviously been the people that we don't like. And now you're being those people. We are not going to support that. You know?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's why I know that this is a lie. That's how I know that this is not the truth.
I think that they were probably at some point going to be willing to take feedback, but it wasn't until before they were going to push through. I think what they were going to do was push through the license that they wanted to make, the one that was in their best interest. And when everything is, you know, said and done and everything's in writing, then they were going to be like, okay, like, we'll listen to you. But like everybody takes feedback. Like, you don't really, in a lot of ways, you don't have a choice. Like, people are gonna come at you and criticize the things you have, and you don't really have a say in that. But it's like, clearly you're not doing this. You're not making these changes now because of, like, feedback. And I don't think they would have changed simply because someone said, hey, this is a bad idea. What has got them to change their mind, and what will continue to get them to change their mind, is people, paying, voting with their dollars.
Yeah.
Choosing not to go forward with their system, and unsubscribing from the things that they have, not buying new products in the future. That is the only type of feedback that I think they would have listened to, and that's why we got the announcement that we did. I truly believe that people have been Open D&D has started back in November of November of 2022. It's been around since back then, since those initial leaks came out about the possibility of third-party content going away. The reason that this leak changed things and that change happened is because their D&D Beyond had to shut down their servers because so many people were like trying to unsubscribe from their account. And as that post that D&D Shorts put out, that's what they're going to listen to.
Yeah. I also kind of wanted to touch on something. I can't remember who was talking about this. Because of the whole like people unsubscribing and people leaving in droves. There is this conversation, especially for those of us who run our games. Is this notion that because of everything that's going on and like people kind of just unsubscribing, I saw Ginny D's post, and I saw Crit Crab's post. It's just like, show me what unsubscribing from D&D Beyond looks like. I needed to touch on this because this is something I talked about as well, and I made a post about this over on the D6 Twitter as well, that there are games that have used D&D Beyond. I use D&D Beyond. My game runs with D&D Beyond, and because I have a live setup with miniatures, tiles, and everything, I have an iPad that controls my music and how I see D&D Beyond and all the dice rolls that go through that. The problem is that I'm not the only one. I know the Unexpectables uses that system as well. And with Connor being on my game, and I know Monty runs through D&D Beyond as well. The problem is that a lot of these games cannot just switch systems. We can't just unsubscribe. There are several of us who are using content sharing to save our players time and money. And that kind of sucks because this puts DMs who run a show like ours in a very difficult position. I can also imagine that being a situation with your guys' game and Joe.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely. We do that as well.
I can only imagine that Joe is dealing with that stress as well, because he can't just unsubscribe and any of the content that he was sharing with you guys suddenly goes up. I'm not going to assume that Poi has every single book. I don't assume Red has every single book. I don't assume you have every single book. I don't assume that for Blue, Daito, or Jade. I know Connor definitely does. But like, I can't assume all my players have every book, the content that they need in order to make their characters. So when we see a lot of these posts where it's like, hey, just unsubscribe, we can't. And that needs to be respected in a way. Because I would love to just say, hey, screw the system, I'm out of here. I would love to just be willing to leave, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of setup. I don't know the Pathfinder system. I don't know any other game system that's going to be able to run D6 the way it does for Black Archives. I know Black Archives is a 1-year campaign where we're almost at about 2/3 of the way there, nearly 40 episodes. And this leads into me thinking about if Wizards and Hasbro doesn't get their head together and, doesn't rectify these problems by the time Black Archives comes to completion, then it would be okay to make this move. And the same thing for you guys. If your campaign comes to an end and Joe's all like, whatever, we're moving to Pathfinder for whatever the next campaign is. And oh god, I fear Unexpectables because they spent 5 years on their campaign. And they recently just finished last year they finished their first campaign, and that took forever. And I don't assume Monty's gonna be able to just be all like, okay, time to move to Pathfinder, second edition in the middle of us starting our second campaign. I don't imagine that. There's a lot of people that can't just drop this.
It's definitely, I mean, like I said, I mean, it puts everybody in such a bad position. And it's not just like, and you're absolutely correct about, the position, that we're in. I don't want to speak to, Joe and how Heart of Alinthi is going to continue in the future. I'm sure that he'll want to address Alinthi. Oh, yeah. That's what you were trying to figure out. Yeah, it's
Alinthi. I'm trying to still pronounce it properly. Yeah.
Yeah, Alinthi.
Alinthi.
At least I hope that's correct, because I'm playing in that game, and if I'm wrong, that's gonna be really embarrassing. But
don't worry, Buck, you got it.
Yeah, that's it. No, but I mean, it's not just like people who are doing streamed campaigns. I mean, like, it's people like people who've been designing systems, who pledge to Kickstarter like things.
Yeah.
Who have been working, towards not just even people who aren't even in like the publishing phase, but people who have been working like on their own projects for like a really long time. People like myself and like you, like I have made content for 5th edition's Dungeons and Dragons for the past like 2 years.
Yeah.
And like, and I used to have some like voice acting content on my channel and some like skits and stuff. I've since moved those all to being unlisted on my channel because, I wanted to focus on that new sense. But, I don't make like really, this is just something that I do because I like to do it, making content and doing that sort of thing. I don't do it to make money. And I know there are people who do, but like, even for people like me, it's like, where am I now? Like, where am I left now? And like, what I will say is I think so long as people are taking the steps to ensure that at the very least Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons aren't like making the money that they otherwise would be had these changes not happen. I think people need to and for the most part I think do understand that this, to go back to what I said earlier, has caught everybody off guard.
Yeah.
Since OGL 1.1 leaked like less than 10 days ago, so much has gone on. So many third-party publishers are coming out and saying like, we're moving away from Dungeons and Dragons, we're making our own gaming license. A lot of people are even making their own tabletop role-playing game.
Yeah.
I think the important thing, and I know Vitamin Dieter has posted a video talking about it. Like, the important thing is coming at this and the changes that are happening from a place of understanding. And if we do that, I think we'll be all right. Yeah. I also put out a video today kind of talking about these changes, and like in it, one of the things that I say is like it's important that we sort of stay unified on this front and take things as they come and engage critically. I personally would think it would be like a pretty, now I'm getting into the controversial parts of my opinions, the hotter takes.
Listen, I've said some pretty hot shit too, so let's be honest.
I think if for someone to come, to come on Twitter, to come on the YouTube comments, to come in the Twitch chat maybe and say to streamers or to Let's Players or actual players, and to say, oh, you're still doing Dungeons and Dragons stuff? Like, we've moved on from that, bucko. Sorry. Like it's just like even if it were that easy, which to a lot of people for the reasons we've stated, it's not.
Yeah.
It's really sad to think like this is a game that so many of us, like you were saying earlier, like there's like what is it, 2 shelves on your bookcase dedicated
I
to
got
Dungeons
two entire bookcases.
2 bookcases.
Two entire
Like
bookcases.
this is we I'm not an you said earlier, we're smart people. Like I can learn to play. I played Pathfinder a couple times. I'm playing it in next week. I can like learn to play a new system.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to get my head around some things in the beginning, but like we can learn to play new shit. Like that's not the issue. The issue is it's really hard to let go of something that's been a part of you, for better or for worse, for a really long time. And the best parts of Dungeons and Dragons, as I'm sure you agree, isn't like the fact that I roll a dice on the table and I say, you know, natural 20 as opposed to critical hit as opposed to like large success or whatever the hell you want to call it. Like that's not the issue. The important thing is the friends that I play with and the, you know, the memories that I've made through that system. But I don't
Yeah.
want to sit here and pretend like it was, you know, Pathfinder or Fate or Powered by the Apocalypse. It was Dungeons and Dragons, and it's going to be difficult for me to change that mindset away because it's something that at the very least was important to me, regardless of all the other regardless of all the other reasons. Which is why, like, even if you are someone who has never made like a Let's Play, he's never designed anything, even if you don't homebrew, if all you've ever done is like buy Wizards of the Coast books and run them with your table and your friends, like I'm not expecting you to stop your like 4-year long 5e campaign. Like you know,
Yeah.
you have to make the decision on how you want to move forward, and if this is something that's important to you and you want to support third-party content creators in this fight, then, and I think that's what everyone should do. But like I personally think it's sort of a dick move to try and force everyone into do it. I think I'm trying
Yeah.
to think of who it was who said this. I think it was Gabe, maybe it was Gabe James Games, who said that like you can't force community on this issue. You can't is in the same way that Wizards can't bully people into like being going along with these changes. People, and I think some people, especially in the community, need to realize that like you can't bully people into this fight alongside you. Like people want to join in this fight against Wizards because it is something that's important to them. But they can't. They have to see why that's important, and you can't force them to.
Yeah. And which is why it's just like I was having the conversation with my players yesterday because we filmed episode 37 of Black Archives, and the Daito had asked me, what are we going to do? And Daito who very much cares about, you know, playing D&D, he loves this community in his own very particular way, and for someone to ask me the important question of what do we do, the simple answer is that we have to be honest with, you know, whatever audience is listening or watching on the upfront, because like I am under no contract to speak nicely about D&D. I like comparative to, you know, a well-known company who is currently having to deal with that right now, as I know. But my simple answer is that we just have to finish Black Archives on the 5e system. And I have no problem with that. And if, once again, you know, Wizards and Hasbro won't get their head out of their ass by the time that it's finished, then we just move to Pathfinder. I am happy to learn about Pathfinder. I've never played Pathfinder before, but I will fucking crack open a Pathfinder book and start reading, because that's what I like to do. I want to read, I want to learn, I want to be a good dungeon master for my players. And, you know, I think that goes for anybody. in their own private games or on stream games or in any game. We want to create something for people to enjoy. And we are willing to make those concessions when the time comes, because, as people were unsubscribing in droves, I'm one person that just gave, Wizards of the Coast $6 this month, and that's all they're getting out of me. And it's going to be like that for, a good amount of time throughout this year. But like, my $72 contribution a year is not gonna break my bank, and it's not gonna make them their millions. It's them selling these books, it's them doing all this stuff. So in its finality of it all, it's like you said, we can't be dickheads about expecting people to move systems right now. We can't be jerks about it. We can't be mean about it. Let people do it in their own time. Can't force community.
I just don't think there's like a perfect way to handle the way that things have been going. Especially not with official language out. Like, I just don't know what, like, I know what I think is the appropriate way to try, at least in my heart, of the appropriate way to react to the information that's come out, and I've said that on my YouTube channel. But until like that language comes out, until something is actually certain, like, I don't know what the best choice would be to make when it comes to all this. I mean, it's still a possibility. Like, if tomorrow Wizards puts out a statement and was like, "Hey guys, we messed up. We're not doing any of that. It's 1.0A." There's a ton of people that have already said, my trust is broken. I'm never coming back to Dungeons and Dragons, even if they do that. But if they do that, and someone's like, maybe maybe this is good enough. Maybe I want to come back to Dungeons and Dragons. Like, maybe that's good enough for me, and they've earned my trust again. In the same way that I would hope no one would fault me for leaving Dungeons and Dragons, I hope no one would fault that person for wanting to come back if everything had been addressed to their satisfaction. Because I really don't think there is a perfect way to react to all of this, given some of the considerations that are involved here.
Yeah. It is in its own very particular way, much like a video game company. Why would you ever trust CD Projekt Red again over, and I'm sorry to constantly use Cyberpunk here as my example. Why would you ever trust CD Projekt Red after that horrid release of Cyberpunk 2077? Why would you ever spend money on something like that ever again? Why would you trust this company to make a video game in the future and expect it to be at proper performance by the time it's released? This is the same mentality. And yet today, people are willing to make the concession to say, hey, they fixed this. They fixed a lot of these problems. Not everything is perfect, but it is to my satisfaction that I will buy Cyberpunk 2077. And while there was a massive uptick because of a very particularly really amazing Netflix show about Cyberpunk coming out recently, sorry. But that's the thing with Wizards, with this game, we've been screwed over before. This is the problem with 4E, because 4E came out literally as soon as Hasbro bought Wizards, just so that way they can denounce everything that was 3.0 and 3.5. And what happened is that everyone's like, no, we're just not going to pick up 4.0. Screw off. Nope. And that's what happened. This is something that can happen again. This is not like Cyberpunk. in its own way. There's a lot of differences that make it up, but there is those things that kind of connect it together. Why should I trust Wizards right now? And I have not a reason to believe a single word they say until they, find a company that will, or find a law firm or a 501c that will take this OGL, make it, irrevocable, and it is handled by these people and only these people, and it can't be changed. It cannot be messed with in the future. I think that would be something that I would find appreciative and something that would be fixable towards me. That you are not willing to change this OGL so violently between 900 to 9,000 words. I think, yes, there are certain updates that are plausible, at least in my mind. It's not unreasonable to ask some things, but I don't think it would be fair for the royalties, the stealing of content, the 30-day notice. Those things are bad across the board. At least for me.
No, and I hear that. I think to be frank, when it comes down to what I think is really important for me anyway, and this is selfish. It's someone who likes 5th edition, and I'm still making the obviously I'll still have to make the decision of if I want to make the move to 1D&D when it comes out. I know there's some people who are still playing 3.5 who haven't, who leave 5th edition alone. Like, at the very least, they gotta maintain the position that you can't revoke OGL 1.0.
Yeah.
If you want to make your new license for your new game and put all your bad shit in the new license for the new game, that's fine. I don't have to buy the new license for the new game. But trying to touch and mess with something that's been around for so long, that forms the basis of what is essentially your community, when for the past 20 years you've maintained the language of the of that OGL and the interpretation of it, and to suddenly change it now, that to me is unforgivable. I honest, this might, again, we're going in the hot take territory.
No, go ahead.
If they want to for 1D&D make royalties, on every dollar that someone makes past 750,000, if they want to do that for their new game, put it in the new game, I won't buy it.
Yeah.
And I even think, part of me even thinks, like, somewhat in some circumstances that seems reasonable to me. If it's your IP and people are making like a lot of money, if it's only like a certain people and you're, it's past, it's not the original 750, but it's past, maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's $1.5 million. I mean, part of me wants to stay reasonable and think I get where they're coming from with that. And there are certain provisions, like if it's just reporting to Wizards, like that's fine. But like, to be messing so severely with everyone's stuff, especially to this old stuff, they just can't do it. I think legally they can't do it. To mess with OGL 1.0. And I'm not the only person who feels that way. They felt that way. Current lawyers feel that way about the interpretation. And I try not to pull this card. I'm an attorney in my real life job, and I don't do contracts and that sort of thing. And I really hate pulling this card when it comes, because I want people to make their decisions about my opinions, not based on that, but on the strength of how I can make them, and not based on, my, what I do for a living. But I truly think the language in the way that it's written is pretty clear the way they had it for 1.0. We're going to make new additions, and when we do so, you can choose to be bound by this license, or any new license. And Ryan, I want to say, is it Ryan Dancy, the former VP of Wizards, has come forward and say, like, oh yeah, when we made OGL 1.0, you were not supposed to be able to revoke it. That's why we didn't put like a deauthorization clause in it.
Yeah.
And, and many people have said, and are saying, like, we've been relying on this interpretation for the past 20 years. So to go ahead and touch that now, it's just ridiculous to me. And it's really, really frustrating. If they were to come forward, and I think I have had my own disagreements with Griffin's Saddlebag and the way they've handled some things in the past, but I think they and I are of the same mind on this point. Really, what they should just do is just not touch 1.0. Like in that would be good enough. Like it would be shitty to try to do all the other stuff, but that would be good enough for most people, I think.
Yeah.
Is to just not touch that thing that affects 5e.
I am in agreement with that. You know, if you want to create your one D&D and like there is no numbered edition from this point on, and you want to have this OGL for this edition and for whatever future editions or whatever future versions you'll have in the future, fine, go ahead, do that. But that will not certify the notion that you are going to have it that way for everything else that came before. Because I've heard some people make, you know, brand new mods for 3.5. There are some people who have attempted to make mods for 4.0, and 5e has been what it is if not for this OGL. You know, you have to credit a lot of the people that have created the OGL the way it is today.
Yeah. It'd be like,
for example, I mean, I have what is the original Tal'Dorei campaign book, and that shit came out when Critical Role was still in Geek and Sundry. Like, you flip the first couple of pages, the Geek and Sundry logo is right fucking there. But then they came out with the Reborn version, which is 3 times as 3 times bigger than what was the original 36 pages of content that came out of their the original campaign book. And it's of course having to be a bit more expensive. But that book was sold in its entirety, and therefore that book falls under that OGL. And that goes for the Fool's Gold campaign as well. Like, this would hopefully be one day what will be, you know, the Urtzi Hummel Guide to the Age of Mythica, and then you know, that's there are plenty of campaign books and world books that involve a lot of this stuff that falls under that OGL, and that's fine. If we wanted to all just move to your new one D&D, you know, business model, and if there was a way to where we could work together, I wouldn't have so much of a problem. Leave the original OGL, leave it that way, don't screw with it, and I am in agreement with you. The fact that they tried to screw with it is unforgivable. And I think my friend Hirono had discussed this matter where an amazing idea would have popped up in the mind of how everyone could potentially benefit from this if they did this thing with the new D&D 1 and their new OGL for this version and for all future content. Is that if you created this homebrew scenario, you could work it like the way that Steam works. That you go to Wizards, hey, I have this entire campaign book. I want you to sell it. You could take, you know, 20, 30% off the top. I get the rest of the money. It has a printed version. It works with D&D Beyond. Let's work this out. Can it be done? And I think that would make a lot more sense, where people can be able to sell and make their game functionally official D&D content. But the problem is that means that it falls under what is the same problem with like, or it would kind of eat the market of drive-through tabletop and the Dungeon Masters Guild. Mm-hmm. So you would have to learn to balance that whole thing out, and what is good for the D&D brand, what is bad for the D&D brand. And obviously in the original OGL, if somebody makes something that is not appropriate, so if you make an entire module that is extremely racist or xenophobic or any of that stuff, D&D can actively revoke that because it does not fall under their the proper purview, if you will.
Right.
So they would have had that ability anyways. And so what would be this future version where they'd be able to look at this campaign book that you have created, this thing that they would have created for this brand new version of D&D, and be all like, here's all the things that are absolutely right. Here are some things that are sort of wrong. Can we rework this? Can we talk about how we can further pursue this in the near future? And this will allow more creative people on their team, and everyone still gets paid properly. And D&D can still make a little bit of the money off the top. I think that would be great. I think that would not be something that is out of my mind. And if you don't want to, go to D&D with this campaign book and you want to sell it yourself and, make your money and using the 1.0 OGL, you're more than happy to. I think that would be the perfect balance between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much. Do we have more time? Are we pushing up against?
I'm not prone to stopping anytime soon, lest you need to go somewhere.
I might have to go sometime soon. But I don't know if there's anything you wanted to touch on more specifically. If there's any like other points you wanted to hit. What I will say, or I can say kind of maybe like my final piece about all this, or however you wanted to handle that. I'm here on your stream. I will defer to the
I think the last bit that I wanted to cover is the results of Wizards and Hasbro's actions. And yes, I am going to call them Hasbro from now on.
I've noticed
because they did a real bruh kind of move. Bruh. Just bruh.
Oh,
God. A real Hasbro kind of move, and the results of their actions have consequences. It's the how was I supposed to know my actions had consequences kind of mentality. And that was Gizmodo's article about the Paizo president coming out with a universal RPG license.
Orc.
Yeah, and I am really looking forward to something like this, because if in some way and in somehow that we can survive in the very near future, where I think this is a glimmer of hope. This is what you were talking about with Pandora's Box, is that in the future, we can see that a major gaming company like Paizo, who is backed by massive amounts of community and are also working with their own law firm and creating this the creative license for OpenRPG. I am really looking forward to this conversation of how we will be creating our own version of RPGs without having to feel like we are isolated down to 5e or 1D&D. And I wanted to know where your mindset is going to be towards that future.
I think because I've read about I'll call it the orc for right now.
I also love the orc. It's cool,
it's cool. Yeah,
I love orcs.
Cool. I like orcs too. I think the smartest thing that Wizards could do is ask to be a part of this team. I think it's the realistically, if I was in the ear of whoever's in charge of shit over there, I would say, hey, this would be a great way to, this probably maybe one of the only ways to get the community back on your side is to go to Paizo, tail between your legs, and say, hey, can we work on this with you? Because if we can have some input, we will agree to it. And then wouldn't that be great? You could have a united front of publishers and developers adding towards this. Now, because of the bad will that they have sort of established, I don't know that these other companies would be willing to agree to take them in on something like this, and I don't think they're going to ask to be a part of this. Wizards, that is. But this, it really does. I guess, fill me with, like you're saying, it makes me hopeful, if anything, that there is at least like a symbolic representation of these companies like working together towards this thing, which has now been established as a problem for these larger creators. I think or these larger publishers. One thing that it does that I'm happy about is it seemingly, at least from the announcement that I read from Paizo, they plan to take it out of their hands to give it to like a law firm. Although they started with saying like the law firm that works for us, which is not great. But I think they one of the options was give it to someone that doesn't work for them, like a nonprofit or something, to maintain it and to have control over it. The I think we've seen with Wizards that the bigger something gets, the more the more chance there is for them to mess something up and to be disengaged from the community. So the fact that there are multiple publishers that have agreed to be involved in something like this is it makes me helpful. Now, I will say that I think in their announcement they say they've already been working on this for, I think, years. I know, because I've played a tabletop role-playing game, how hard it is to bring multiple people into a table to work on one project. So I don't anticipate that like these companies are going to be able to come up with something to placate the community immediately. But even the symbolic nature of it, of them working together to create more accessibility for this language, I think is a step in the right direction. I mean, ideally, if we, and this is obviously in an ideal world, if we could get most publishers to work on, including Wizards, to work on something like just like a flat language that you can say, hey, we're going to release this under this this license, and it's like a standard license that you can put anywhere. It would be, I mean, maybe ideally the best is if you could just put your game like into the Creative Commons, but I understand you want to hold on to your IP and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But to have something like a boilerplate sort of contract that you can plug and play, and I imagine it will probably be somewhat modular, this whatever the orc ends up looking like, because not all games are going to have all the same considerations. At least having a community agreed upon set of language would be helpful, and so I'm glad that people are working towards it.
Yeah. It is the kind of language that I like to hear. I like to hear that, that instead of us against the entirety of the community, it is, hey community, can you tell us what it is you think is right? And there are plenty of bad actors within communities. Trust you me, I get it. And I understand there will be those who want to prioritize their bottom line every single day. The same thing could be said about companies as well. But at the end of the day, it should be about what's fair. What is willing to be collaborated upon. I hope, and I'm again with you on this sliver of hope from Pandora's box, that maybe, just maybe, Wizards will see it our way and see it from Paizo's way, see it from the community way, to subject themselves and just say, hey, we are willing to be a part of the orc. We're willing to be with the orcs on this one, which is not something many people would generally say.
Mm-hmm.
But appreciate the notion that, hey, let's make this open for the most part in a very particular way where it's fair for us, so that way we can still make our money and run this game, hire the people we need to hire, create create the modules we want to create the source books we want to create. That is fair. That is fair. Everyone gets their share of the pie. And that is what needs to happen. Everyone is free to get their share. The moment that people start trying to take more than what is fair, that becomes a problem. And that's what happened recently with Wizards. They were trying to take the whole pie, the cake, fucking the entire bakery was what they were trying to do, is take. And at this point, it is important to open the doors, distribute things fairly, and be willing to see what wrongs have been made and how do we make it right. And that means they need to stop blocking people on, Discord. They need to stop trying to placate. They need to, as I said before, they need to do is shut the fuck up, put their heads down, listen to what's being told to them, and then fix it. Simple. It's a simple fucking concept. And sometimes people really fight against that. But that shouldn't ultimately be the case. Anyways, I think I've taken enough of your time.
Well, no, I mean, I mean, obviously, for the people who are in chat that are wondering, you and I have wanted to like do something like this to like work together in some aspect for a while now. So I'm glad that we gotten the chance to do it.
We should do it again. Next week?
I like this. This was fun. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously depends on my schedule. Welcome to the Fel and Yaro show. We're gonna. Well, yeah. I think if we're ending, what I'll say to everybody, and if Wizards is listening, I think one thing I wish people would understand is like one thing that Wizards has been really good about, not good about, the one PR thing that has there. I think people tend to think that given they're not very good at PR, and obviously they've been making mistakes, but one thing they've been really successful in is making people think that one D&D is people don't understand that one D&D is a new game. It's a new game they're making. If we were to call this Yaro's silly game, and I were to tell you like, hey guys, we're making Yaro's silly game. If you start playing Yaro's silly game, you can't make content for Dungeons and Dragons anymore. You'd be like, huh? Like, yeah. If you make like a homebrew, like if you make like a homebrew class for Yaro's silly game, you have to pay us money for any Dungeons and Dragons game you make in the future. And I'd be like, oh, but those aren't the same.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, it's an addition change, but like that I think is the mentality that people need to have when trying to approach like what should and should not be changing. Like, Wizards needs to understand that like people aren't gonna buy this. Like, you have such a committed fan base, and like you're really shooting yourselves in the foot because you think slapping Dungeons and Dragons on it is going to convince the majority of your committed fan base. It's gonna get some new people who watched Stranger Things and are like, I want to play this Dungeons and Dragons. Ooh, one D&D is for me, please. But for the people who are coming from this campaign over the past near decade of playing fifth edition, like they're stuck in a system. It's really hard to get people to move on to another like system, but you're doing it inadvertently. So long as people understand, have that mentality, I think it becomes a lot easier to address some of these issues of like, here's what's really important as we look at this new gaming system. And when you look at it that way, you start to realize, oh, you're trying to change not just this new system, you're trying to change the system that I currently play and care about. And that is what really is frustrating for me. The real change, I think the real test of this is not going to be when I think they put out whatever new language they put out. I don't think we're going to see the change then. I don't think we're going to see the change based on the box office numbers for the Dungeons and Dragons movie, for Baldur's Gate, I don't think is gonna where we're gonna see any big changes. I don't think we're gonna need to see like any big changes when it comes to, you know, the stuff that they've been putting out. The real test of what Wizards is able to do and whether people are going to respond is ultimately going to come in 2024 when they announce 1D&D, or when they release 1D&D, assuming that they stick with that schedule. And by then it's going to be too late. I mean, you're like, it's if they don't make the steps now to prep the community to make that move, to start to buy that new system, if they destroy all of their credibility and they destroy everything, if they don't change back to the path that they were on, they're not gonna be looking at any numbers when 1D&D comes out, and it's at that point, like we've been saying this entire time, it's gonna be too late to patch anything.
Yep.
Everything will have already been messed up. There will be no coming back. And so I think it's why I appreciate you having me here today to have this conversation, and why I appreciate the conversations that are happening like all over the place right now.
Yeah. Well then, I said, I appreciate you, man. Like, I really do. Like,
it's gonna be a good time.
It's going, yeah. Yeah. You're the heart of my ye. Oh God. I don't know. I think I forgot what year it was that Belcanus ended, or the in-game year. But I think it was. I think it's been some time.
Someone, I know I shouldn't do this, but let me look on the.
Is it? Please. I haven't looked at like the.
I know on
the wiki
I know on
forever.
I know I don't have the. I'm not gonna look on the wiki, but I know someone did the math on the. I think someone did the math on and like put it in one of the comments to one of the sessions. But I think it's like 30, maybe 30 years have passed or something like that.
Yo, Enoch's a fucking grandpa.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say.
He's a grandpa now. Holy shit. Should have had a drum holder.
Oh god, 37 years after the events of Belcanus Necro Hunt, according to the wiki.
Okay, so
they call me old Enoch.
They call me they call me Old Henry.
I can't wait till we come through a clearing and there's like a man made of like all types of like metal, like you've like completely metalized like different parts of your body, and you have like a robot eye, and you're like, haven't heard that name in a long time. Like, who's this old timer?
I would love to just show up and, you know, it's just a rusted version of Koro, yeah. just like slowly clanking forward.
Oh, that's so pure that Koro has not been changed. I listened to all of Necro Hunt before I had even been asked to be a part of Olinthi. And one thing Joe told me in the beginning, he's like, you don't need to have listened to it. Like, nothing's gonna be nothing's gonna. Oh, this is a spoiler because you haven't seen session 2. There's a character from Necro Hunt that shows up in episode 2 of Olinthi.
So maybe player character or
no, player character, an NPC.
Oh, an NPC. Ooh.
Do you want me to tell you which one it is?
Please.
It's No Tail.
Fucking No Tail.
Yeah, No Tail.
How is he still alive?
I don't know.
How is he still alive? You know what
someone said in the comments, they were like, he's a planeswalker. So we're like, I think we're on the same plane. But Joe was like, you don't need to have watched it, and he's like, it's not gonna touch on anything. And so I was like, oh, okay. Like, he's like, yes, it takes place in the same world, but it's a different time. Nothing's really gonna the countries are far apart. There's nothing that's gonna
this
be.
Cat has spent like 27 years.
And I'm trying to go in with the knowledge that Buck has, and not that I have, but like in the inventory, there's like the stick of stickiness, and I'm staring at it like, okay. No. So don't buy. I'm like, I don't know anything about it. I don't know what's going on with this.
Joe, you have to stop. Joe, you have to stop.
That's what I'm wondering. Is what if that was the connection between our two, the 37-year difference?
Yeah, because Enoch was 27 when he was in Belcanus,
So
so
he's
that puts
64?
him, yeah, that puts him
64?
around 64 years old. He's at half of his life right now because he's a Asimar.
Asimar, yeah.
Yeah, so about 130 years they live generally,
Okay.
and they could technically live a little bit longer. No, 160.
Ooh.
Yeah, so he's about a third of the way through then.
I don't think there's any chance that we're going to meet any player characters in the campaign, but maybe,
I don't think so either.
But I would love for there to be a like a one shot. If he is ever considered doing like a one shot where like maybe our characters can like meet up at some point, that's something that I would be very interested in.
I would love for there to be this versus scenario.
Oh,
where
like I think Critical Role did something like that, didn't they? Where they were like they
Yeah.
brought in characters from their different campaigns in like a battle royale type scenario.
Yeah, it's just like it's it I would think it'd be really funny if it was me and Nathaniel, because like, to be honest, after our time together of like what was contention to basically content,
Yeah.
now it's just like 30 years is like one of them has not aged a fucking day and the other one is starting to actually look older.
I'm scared of Nathaniel after like what he would be able to accomplish after like 30 years from the events of Necro Hunt.
I'm amazed that he has not been put on fucking trial.
Yeah.
And like Enoch like sitting there as a judge.
I don't want to, you know, say anything. I mean, obviously there's like levels that each of the characters are. I think we started at level 3. But the like I think the difference in tone between the power level, I think within the sort of like tonal narrative of Necro Hunt, you four were already like sort of like very powerful, and to an extent that I don't think that we are in Olympia. I think like it's more of like we're more of a ragtag group than like a special squadron of people put together for the purpose of doing this sort of thing. So a fight between our two groups, I think, would end pretty quickly in your side's favor, I would think.
I imagine René Baudot is a crazy strong bard. Nathaniel has only gotten more fucked up with his enchantment magic. Enoch has developed more and more technologies and has very much upgraded, you know, objection and the gavel to its perfection. And I'm just gonna be honest, Shubi's character is gonna be nothing but a fucking living blender. So you're absolutely right, but if we were all at the same level,
yeah,
you know, I imagine that whatever fight that we would have would be pretty goddamn interesting.
It's definitely there's not enough there yet after 2 sessions for us to be able to adequately power scale, but maybe in the future.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I wanted to say this. Had Joe asked me to come back, and I told Joe whenever the case comes up to the idea that if he wanted me to come play again, I will gladly accept. My first thought was to play a barbarian, and you immediately took that. Yeah, I would have. I
read your diary.
Yeah, I wanted to play a bugbear barbarian.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yes. He would have been much different. He would have been a big softy. That personality wise, he would have just been this really big, soft, fuzzy guy. And like, I wanted to think of like Ferdinand with the bee sting. Whenever anybody like pokes at him, that's when he rages. And that's what the whole idea was. And his backstory, super uncomplicated, but he was just like this really big guy that would have just, you know, really been this warm blanket for everybody, instead of what was this very hot metal kind of idea that Enoch was. So yeah, I wanted to tell you that. I was going to actually, I really want to play a bugbear barbarian, but you already got to it.
I gotcha. You can't do it.
I think I know what I will do if I intend to play a barbarian though.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna fucking do a Fearbulk finally. I've been wanting to do it for years. Yeah. Fearbulk barbarian, something nobody ever gets to see. All right. I think we need to wrap up here because once again I've taken too much of your time. Thank you again so much and for having this conversation about the OGL. If we ever decide to have more conversations like this about the future of D&D, or hell, I guess even Pathfinder now, you know, we could always message each other. Excuse me.
At some point I'm going to be looking for people to try and play City of Mist with me. I've always been trying to get people to try and play that. So
I have heard of City of Mist, never got to play it, never got to try. I think it was Davy that told me about City of Mist, and I was like, interesting. I don't know how it's done, but maybe one day.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will, I guess, bye everybody in the chat. Thank you, and Yaro, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
For my hot takes and whatnot. And Wizards of the Coast over there in the corner, thank you for being here.
My goodness.
Got him. I noticed that was there, and I was like, in the stream, I was like, probably should have moved my camera to not have my trash can. And it looks bad.
Oh, lovely. All right. Well then, that said, thank you all for joining the stream. Thank you again, Fel, for hanging out. And as to everyone, be safe, keep an open mind, make sure to hold feet to the fire, and start looking at systems that will be beneficial to your game. But yeah, lots of love to all of you. Be safe out there, and see you at another stream.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.